Welcome everyone to the 17th Celebrity Synastry chart reading, where I will be looking into Taylor Swift and Joe Alwyn. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Adeline. I look at the dynamic between two celebrities using astrology, specifically Synastry. For those new and returning, I take notes on a Synastry chart looking at the personal planet signs, aspects, and if birth time available house overlays. I share these notes and add my extra insights and interpretations along the way. And of course, as always, leave your thoughts in the comments below and let's get a discussion going. So if that sounds good to you, like, subscribe, and keep on watching. Starting off with the sun, we have Taylor's sun in Sagittarius and Joe's sun in Pisces. In traditional astrology, these are both ruled by Jupiter. Taylor gets impatient with Joe. Taylor unintentionally hurts Joe. Joe doesn't understand Taylor, and they support each other's hopes and dreams. Interesting start. Joe's sun in Taylor's third house. There is a comfortable atmosphere. Joe thinks Taylor is brilliant. This is kind of funny. Like, if he doesn't understand her, like, it's kind of a funny, sort of dynamic to have, I guess, is the best word for it. Like, oh, I don't really get what she's doing, but what she's doing is pretty cool. They enjoy talking about their days. Joe thinks Taylor is predictable. Taylor feels smarter around Joe. Joe sees Taylor as someone with good common sense. Taylor's sun, Sextile Joe's Mercury. They have similar interests, they have an intellectual friendship, they are able to work together, they like to talk to each other, we saw earlier. They resolve problems easily, they find it easy to share ideas, and they're relaxed around each other. Taylor wants to improve Joe, and Taylor values Joe's intelligence. Interesting. Joe's sun, Trine Taylor's moon. Honest communication. Yeah, I'm not getting anything like deceiving here. I feel like these two are pretty honest with each other. They're comfortable. Joe relies on Taylor's support, and yeah, these two seem to be very much reliant on each other, but thus far in a healthy way. Taylor relies on Joe's wisdom, as I'm pretty sure we saw before. They are naturally cooperative. Taylor tends to be dependent on Joe, and both feel they can rely on each other. So very much, I feel like so far, they seem to, be able to rely on each other and value each other very much. Joe's sun, square Taylor's Mars. Sparks fly. Competitive nature. Tendency to interrupt each other, and individual egos create problems. Productive to work on a mutual goal. Joe feels challenged by Taylor's dominance. That is definitely something, thus far, Taylor seems to be a bit more have the upper hand in this relationship. They both need to stop focusing on the details, need to respect each other's natural habits. Over time, get more annoyed with each other. Joe's sun, Trine Taylor's Jupiter. They will overdo together. They're good travel companions, and there's a possibility of unpredictability. I'm not surprised with these, readings most of the time because, of the nature of the relationship, the publicness, I guess. Taylor boosts Joe's self-confidence. Both have a desire to make the other happy. Positive mutual respect will be maintained if they separate. Taylor gives Joe the benefit of the doubt frequently. Joe's sun, Sextile Taylor's Uranus. They start as friends, and it's a relationship of freedom. Yeah, I'm not getting anything restricting so far. There is a bit of, tension with Taylor's dominance and, assertiveness, but besides that, Joe is attracted to Taylor's originality. This is also another element that keeps coming up. Joe seems to really admire Taylor. They enjoy intellectual conversations, both encourage the other to be themselves. I see that. Both have a strong attraction to the other. Frequent changes occur in the relationship, connecting that to the possibility of unpredictability. Joe finds Taylor to be inspiring and exciting. Joe may feel threatened by Taylor's lack of limits. I'm not sure what Joe does, but I assume Taylor, because, she still seems to be very much active within her career. I wonder if he sort of would like her to be a bit more present because, her having a career, traveling around and, honestly probably doesn't include spending a lot of time. People with, career focused. I wonder if that is what he feels threatened by, sort of her, her focusing on her career. Relationship works best when both encourage the other's independence. So now we're on to moon. We have Taylor's moon in Cancer and Joe's moon in Taurus. Both desire a secure domestic life. Taylor accommodates Joe's needs. That's nice. Joe appreciates Taylor's emotional nurturing. Taylor feels Joe can be too direct sometimes. Joe's moon in Taylor's 7th house. Accepting atmosphere. Joe feels secure with Taylor. They complement each other. I see that because Taylor does seem to be a bit more the assertive one. Joe seems to be a bit more I don't want to, what's the word? I don't want to use the word submissive, but, he seems to be a bit more the passive one, I guess, in the relationship. They want to be together frequently. As I was saying, I feel like this was coming from Joe's side. Taylor likes Joe's quirks, Taylor finds Joe to be enjoyable, and Taylor wants to support Joe. Taylor's moon trine Joe's Mercury. They're comfortable talking to each other about everything. It's a harmonious relationship. Joe enjoys being emotionally nourished by Taylor, I think we saw before. Joe provides a foundation for Taylor's feelings, and Taylor is comfortable expressing her feelings of Joe. You know, so far, I feel like I'm gonna regret this because every time I say this in the reading, it goes wrong. But, like, I just want to say it anyway. So far, this seems to be a very nice relationship. I mean, there is a bit of conflict there, you know, with Taylor being a bit more assertive and Joe seemingly not liking that. But so far, it feels very nice. Taylor's moon square Joe's sun Venus. Previous relationships negatively impact this relationship. I don't know anything about Joe, so I feel like when I'm going to add these comments, like, it may seem biased, but genuinely, I don't know anything about Joe, more about Taylor. So I assume this has to do with, like, Taylor's previous relationship. She did before Joe, she had a bit of a reputation for, like, going around with men a lot. Maybe that has something to do with that negatively impacting this relationship, possibly, I don't know. Strong connection. Taylor may not be able to provide Joe with the emotional nourishment he wants. I kind of want to cancel this one out because we've already seen a couple times that he feels emotionally nourished by her, but maybe it's in a different way. Joe may struggle with his self-worth. I assume maybe this has to do with Taylor being a bit more, like, assertive in this relationship. Both need to resolve their internal issues for this to work. Yeah, I feel like so far, I feel like with Joe's ego and Taylor's, I guess, like, past, both tend to take each other for granted. Living beyond means will create strains. Both need to learn to compromise. They both like each other, but not their habits. I feel like, I mean, they seem to like each other. I don't know what habits these are because I feel like their individual egos, create the strains in this relationship. Their values are in conflict. They both may feel misunderstood. Both will learn how to cooperate. Taylor sees Joe as narcissistic. I assume this is coming from a place where maybe Joe feels a bit more undermined and, like, wants this sort of high power in this relationship. Joe does not always understand Taylor's emotions. That is something we haven't really seen. You know, we've seen that Joe feels very much emotionally nourished. Not so much if Taylor does, though. And Joe sees Taylor as needy. Joe's moon trine Taylor's Venus. There is a mutual appreciation. It's easy to compromise. So I'm glad because we saw, like, they both learned to compromise here. I assume, like, throughout this relationship, they really got to that place of compromise. There is natural affection. They're a social couple. Ironically, I don't feel like they are. I'm not sure. Supportive of each other during conflict, and they appreciate art together. Joe's moon opposite Taylor's Mars. Emotional roller coaster. They both get defensive. Joe finds Taylor to be aggressive. So I feel like possibly maybe Taylor could be a bit too domineering in this relationship. Taylor finds Joe to be demanding. They both react instinctually to each other. Codependency is likely to occur, and Joe wants commitment with Taylor. I really feel from Joe's end, he really wants Taylor to settle down, sort of thing. I don't feel like, from what I'm getting in this reading, I don't feel like he's crazy about her continuing a career. I feel like he would very much be happy if they, like, sort of settled down and Taylor, like, disappeared for a bit. So now on to Mercury. We have Taylor's Mercury in Capricorn and Joe's Mercury in Aquarius. Taylor gets impatient with Joe. Taylor teaches Joe how to be more practical. Joe teaches Taylor to be more open-minded. And they fundamentally communicate the same way. Yeah, we haven't really seen much with communication, except they tend to be argumentative, I believe. And they're both instinctual with those arguments. But besides that, Joe's Mercury in Taylor's third house. Joe is more chatty around Taylor. I think in the beginning we saw how they both like talking to each other about their day. So I assume Joe really does enjoy having that communication with Taylor. Joe enjoys long conversations with Taylor. So yeah, it seems like Joe very much appreciates being in the company of Taylor and especially talking to her. Taylor's Mercury conjunct Joe's Uranus. Joe challenges Taylor's way of thinking. I assume this would have to be in, like, the trajectory of her life and where she's taking her life, possibly. Both enjoy experimenting. They come up with original ideas together. They're impulsive together. Maybe that's why there can be a bit of an emotional roller coaster with these two. Discover new ways of seeing the world together. They're creative together. Taylor truly understands Joe's originality. There does seem to be a dynamic of Taylor really wanting to nurture Joe, not just emotionally but also creatively. They grow intellectually together, share an interest in unusual topics, and they casually talk about taboos. Find uncommon solutions to problems. Joe's Mercury square Taylor's Mars. They challenge each other, differences cause irritation. Yeah, so I feel like that's a good way of describing the like sort of negative side to this relationship, is that, you know, they challenge each other and they have their difference. I feel like that's a good way of describing the like cons to this relationship. They challenge their differences on both ends. Debates quickly turn into arguments. Joe is too critical of Taylor. I see that. Taylor has a habit of interrupting Joe. I assume that's why he can get irritated. Living together is difficult. I assume this would come from maybe Taylor is like traveling a bit too much for work, especially with Joe seemingly wanting to like settle down in one particular place. Taylor tries to force her opinion on Joe. So now on to Venus. We have Taylor's Venus in Aquarius and Joe's Venus in Pisces. It's an unusual relationship. Possibly, I would say like their more unusual relationship comes from them being like experimenting with each other and them having, you know, sharing those unusual taboo interests. They share humanitarian interests. Joe feels unfulfilled. I'm starting to feel a bit bad for Joe. He seems to be very like, I don't want to use the word underdog. He seems to be kind of left behind though. In this relationship, he doesn't feel like his own individual self like Taylor does. Joe really feels like Taylor's man. Taylor loves to pick Joe's brain. Joe goes along with Taylor's visions. That's what I'm talking about. He really seems to just be there for Taylor, which isn't bad per se, but I feel like, I don't know, having your individual self in a relationship is pretty good. Taylor sees Joe as too sensitive. Taylor helps Joe creatively. We're seeing again, see, that's the only thing we're really seeing from Joe's individuality is like that Taylor is nurturing that and Taylor is helping him. Potential for a productive relationship and see the best in each other. I see that, especially from Taylor's end. I feel like she really cares about Joe and helping him grow as a person. Joe's Venus in Taylor's 4th house. Joe feels the need to protect himself from Taylor. I would say this more relates to his ego, honestly. There's strong magnetism. Joe has a strong attraction to Taylor. Taylor senses Joe's hesitancy, so I assume this hesitancy comes from, you know, she sort of senses maybe Joe isn't a big fan of like her continuing a career or like I guess not necessarily a career per se, is it? It's more her like traveling around and like spending time away from him. Uncertainty and tension characterizes the relationship. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Both their Venus signs are sextile to each other, so they share similar ideals and similar taste in aesthetics. Which makes me feel they do have a potential to sort of like have that sort of settly down life. Cooperate on the basic level. Yeah, I see that. They seem to be fun. Like we saw before, they fundamentally communicate the same way. I feel like on the fundamental level, they are pretty much similar. Possibility of a friendship turned marriage. Did we see before they meet as friends? At ease in each other's company, appreciate how the other dresses, handles money and socializes, good decision-making skills as a couple, they feel warmly about each other. I think we seem to keep seeing this. It's very harmonious and lovey. Both want to make the other happy and they share a social life as a couple. Okay, so when we saw like they're a social couple, I assume this would be more in their like own inner circles, not necessarily in a public way. Taylor's Venus opposite Joe's Jupiter. It's a promising relationship. They share an optimistic life together. Both have a problem with promising more than they can give. And they are generous with each other. I assume this would have to be related to them living beyond means together. Taylor's Venus conjunct Joe's Saturn. Joe stabilizes Taylor's emotions. I see that. He seems to be very much a rock in this relationship. Joe feels responsible for Taylor. I feel sad because I wanted to see a bit more of his personality. Taylor may feel restricted by Joe. I assume this would be in terms of maybe Joe tries to get her to sort of like, you know, live a more settled down life and go away from her career at least a little bit. They always come back together. I'm not, maybe where they were on and off, I don't know. Painful but strong bond. I mean, I don't genuinely feel this. Like, this isn't like accurate to them. But they do have a strong bond, and I feel like there are some pains with it, with their sort of like how they are as individuals. May demand too much from each other too soon. Joe's Venus, Trine Taylor's Mars. Taylor enjoys spending time with Joe. It's good to see they both enjoy spending time together. It's a fulfilling relationship. Joe makes Taylor feel confident and desirable. I would see why. Strong romantic feelings, and the feeling of love never fades away. Joe's Venus square Taylor's Uranus. They feel they cannot rely on the other. Taylor resents Joe's desire for commitment. This is basically all I've been saying about Joe, is like Joe wants Taylor to just settle down and commit and live a settled life, pretty much. And Taylor doesn't like that. They're separated at times, emotional roller coaster, it's not a stable relationship, and there's an instant attraction. Which we did see, like they're both very much attracted to each other. So now we're on to Mars. We have Taylor's Mars in Scorpio and Joe's Mars in Gemini. Joe tends to be nitpicky with Taylor. I 100% see this. Impulsive relationship. Taylor is possessive of Joe. That's weird. I feel like they both are. I wonder, like, but from Joe's end it seems to be like, you know, Taylor, let's settle down, live a, you know, happy life and live a calm life. I don't know what it would be on Taylor's end. Besides, it seems like Joe doesn't have much of a personality. He seems to be more of a rock for Taylor. But that doesn't seem like something that Taylor is instigating as much. Like, it's unfortunate that is the case. I don't feel like that is exactly Taylor's fault. I don't know what the reason for that is, but maybe we'll see more. Joe finds Taylor intellectually stimulating. We've seen for the billionth time. Joe's Mars in Taylor's 7th house. Joe speeds up the relationship. I really am not surprised. I think we saw before, like, they expect too much from each other too soon. That probably is more coming from Joe's end. Joe is calmer around Taylor. Joe wants to please Taylor. It's a very romantic relationship we saw before. They both enjoy spending time together. So that is the reading. It's a bit of a shorter one today, not as many aspects, but my final thought. I don't feel like this is necessarily a bad reading. Like, I'm not coming out of this reading feeling bad or anything, or trash or anything like that, like some other readings I've done. You know, we kept seeing throughout the reading they both have an attraction to each other. It's like a very warm, loving, harmonious relationship. We kept seeing that. I kept seeing this throughout the reading, but he doesn't seem to have much of like a individuality. He seems to be very much Taylor's rock in life and someone stable for Taylor and someone to admire Taylor. He seems to be very much interested in her, like, which is good, but it comes from more of like an admiration point of view, like, wow, she's so smart and brilliant. Like, he really views her highly and puts her on a podium. And that's just very interesting to me because he also seems to have a bit of an ego. He doesn't seem to like that Taylor is a bit more of the like dominant one in the relationship, a bit more of the assertive one, the more active one, rather than being passive. And there's not much I can really say about Taylor. I feel like we haven't really spent a lot of time with Taylor in this reading, besides that she very much nurtures Joe. I really like how they enjoy spending time with each other. We kept seeing that, and like, we did see there was a bit of like, you know, bickering and tension between their differences, but you know, normal stuff, I guess. So it's just a very interesting dynamic, and we saw the glimpse of like possibly Taylor's past like interfering with this relationship. Like, this relationship on the whole seems to be very good, but it's just the little things of, you know, Joe seems to have a bit of an ego. Taylor, I feel like she's just naturally a bit more assertive, but it doesn't seem to be coming from an ego place. I feel like her sort of like issue in the relationship, it's not even an issue, like her sort of like hardship being in this relationship possibly more relates to like her past and the sort of past relationship she's had. But yeah, those are my final thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this reading. I know this is a bit shorter than normal. If you did like this video, give this video a like and subscribe for more videos and longer videos from me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!